So on to our final speaker before we take a networking break. This speaker, not only in my experience, but also from my research about him, is a very calm, collected, but also incredibly inspirational, not only an inspirational leader, but an inspirational person. Now, a couple of years ago, when we ran our conference and awards in Johannesburg, we had the honor of having Dr. Jerry present and keynote there for us when we ran the conference in South Africa. And today, I'm not exactly sure where you are, Dr. Jerry Gule, but I'm sure you will enlighten us. He is joining us. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of People Management. He has an incredible background in human resources and development. He spent a large proportion of his career as a general manager at Total, and he, as I said, is his reputation precedes him. So, Dr. Jerry, I'm really, really delighted for you to share with us and speak with us. And I will leave you now, and then I'll come back and ask you lots of questions before the end, okay? Thank you. Oh, I'm just...
Thank you so much.
You were on mute. You were on mute. Yes. We've unmuted you.
Now I'm good, right?
Yeah, you're good.
It's a great privilege for me, Amy, to be here this morning and to be sharing with, to be part of this marathon. So I'm very excited to be here talking to the audience. And I have a question for everyone. The question is this, having listened to Amy now, the question I want to ask is, the workplace is what we bring to it. Yeah, who we are, how we show up, where we live, and then we come to the workplace and we make the workplace. The workplace is not the bricks or the car right now, or the home, the kitchen, your study. You create, you make the workplace. So let me ask you the question: what kind of a work colleague are you? Have you thought about that? Have you taken time to say, each time I come to the workplace, how am I showing up? How am I behaving? Now that the workplace has moved to your own home, how are you showing up? How are the people around you feeling about you? When you put up that role, I'm working now, I'm a worker, I'm being professional in matter. How are they experiencing? I think that's important, because who we are, how we show up, determines how other people feel about us. In fact, someone has said that people will forget a lot of what maybe what we have said from them, but how you have treated them. That may be something that would last forever. So how are you treating the people around you, even in your own household? Because that's important. Your house, your household, your place where you stay right now, as Yemi pointed out, Ellen, I'm sure other speakers have been doing so throughout this talk, is that we are now working differently. Brené Brown puts it this way. She says, we do not have to do all of it alone. We were never meant to do it alone. We have to do it as a collective. Humanity has to show up. And I think this situation that we find ourselves in as a globe has really emphasized the fact that we are each brother and sister's keeper. So that's why I ask you that question, that we are connected. In South Africa, we have a saying, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. I am because you are. And I think this is what I'm appealing. I want us to think about as we think about the inspiring workplaces. Because if we are not inspiring to those around us, if we bring gloom and doom, or doom and gloom, as it were, then we're not going to create spaces where people have a spring under their feet as they work. And they look forward to coming back to whatever your workplace might be. I mean, we know we're going to have blended workplaces, sometimes working away from the office or from the factory, but sometimes working there because of this future that we now live in, the now situation that we face. But so it's important to really think, to really make that choice as an individual. what kind of a work colleague am I going to be? Am I going to be creating this movement of inspiring workplaces where people bring their total self to the workplace? I think that is key, because I am because you are. I can't be happy when we're not said. I was part of a webinar a week ago talking about some of the things that happen in the workplace, the violence that can happen in the workplace. I mean, you can only look across the pond, those of you, or across the Atlantic, because remember, the Capitol Hill is a workplace. If you just reflect on what happened there a week or so ago, and you think the people who are working in that environment, what were they feeling as they were under that particular siege? So we are each other's keeper. We've got to do that. We've got to make sure that we bring inspiration to the people around us, because we're living in a world that is, as Yemi again pointed out, and other colleagues have been pointing out through this marathon presentation, we are in a VUCA world. We're in a tuna world, turbulent, uncertain, novel, and indeed, there's a lot of ambiguity. And we cannot have all the answers. So we need our colleagues. This is where I say, and the video that was presented earlier actually speaks to this, the role of a leader in creating that stability, in creating that certainty in an environment that is uncertain. But we're all called to change. We're all called to make choices for being good colleagues. So I want to talk, what I'm talking about here are just those 5 pillars that will help us to navigate this now new normal. People have spoken about psychological safety. I will mention that again also in my talk. But we need, the first thing that I think we need to make sure that we create a humane workplace, because that's what we are. We are human beings. Therefore, we must create these humane workplaces where where everyone feel they belong. As a work colleague, that's one of the things that I'm urging us to do, is to think about, am I making people feel here welcome, feel they belong, especially if you're a leader, but not only the leaders. Because teams, we create this psychological safety when we come together, how we welcome each other into the environment. So belonging is fundamental in the workplace. That is what is necessary. And are you a thorn, or are you the flower that brings people in, that encourages belonging? Because everybody should feel, I totally belong here. I'm not a stranger. I'm not an outsider. We must make all our employees, our team members, wherever they are, even if they are working remotely, but when we come together, because by the way, we have to create those opportunities where we come together with our team. I try to do that every week with our team, even if we can't connect. Of course, sometimes we can't connect physically if the environment doesn't allow social or physical distancing, but we can connect online, as I know most of you are doing. Belonging is so critical. I mean, Maslow told us about this, that if you feel you don't belong, you feel like an outsider, you're not going to enjoy that work environment. So we must create workspaces where people feel they belong. But that means, as an individual, you've got to create that ambience of you, I am because you are, that people don't feel they're being excluded. So the 5 pillars. The first one is, of course, we must be sociable. What do I mean by being sociable in an environment where we are distant, we can't see each other most of the time? Of course, we use tools like this. We have meetings like this where we can meet virtually to encourage those bonds, to ensure that those bonds continue. And as leaders, as supervisors, and as work colleagues, when last did you just make a phone call to a colleague to check, how are you doing? Yeah, because we need that. The loneliness can kill us. Someone has said, actually, who works for The Guardian over there in the UK, has said, I work with brilliant people, smart people surround me, but I feel so isolated. And we all know what the isolation, what it can do to an individual. Let's reach out to our work colleagues, wherever they may be, and make sure that we remain sociable. Being sociable doesn't mean you have to be hugging all the time. You can give those virtual hugs, but make sure that we are indeed compliant, because at the moment, sociable and compliant, because we are living with, we are living under this particular cloud until the whole thing has been resolved, hopefully in the coming months. But be sociable, but make sure that you are compliant. Make sure that you care. You are because I am because you are. Let's make sure that you take care of one another. Second one, we've already referred to psychological safety. I want just to emphasize that, because that's so important. When we feel like outsiders, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is mainstreaming diversity and disability in the workplace. Sometimes we just forget the fact that we have colleagues who may have a disability, and how do we treat them? How do we welcome them? Actually, do we ever even think about their involvement and their safety and their psychological safety within our work environment? We can spend a long time talking about psychological safety, but what does it mean? It means you, as an individual, we have a responsibility to make others feel included in your circle, wherever you are as an individual. But because one of the things that will happen is you just make a contribution and you depart the stage. As you are on stage, how are you acting? How do we see your action as a work colleague? Are you inspiring us, or are you distracting and actually repelling? Are you a repellent or an attractor? I'm appealing that we should be liberating the motivation of all those around us. We should be enablers. And somebody has written a book, of course, that some of you may have seen, The Multipliers. That's what we should be. People should feel, I want to be around this person because they add to what I have. Psychological safety is when people feel around you, they feel safe. They can disclose. They can be who they are. They need not be fakes. They show up genuinely. They live their true north. Are you living your true north? Because that's what makes inspiring workplaces. When work colleagues focus on the task in as much as they focus on the welfare of their colleagues, those around them. That was my second pillar, right? Third pillar, we must have a sharing culture. This hoarding, holding whatever you want to hold information. That's so old school. That's so old fashioned. We need to create cultures that are sharing, where we know that we can put emphasis on abundance, because there is abundance, not the scarcity mentality. So we want the third pillar is that we must have a sharing culture, a culture where we know that we don't have to hoard information, we don't have to hoard knowledge, because knowledge is everywhere, and we can share that to enable our colleagues to function better in their roles or in the things that they are supposed to do. A culture of diversity, a culture that is comfortable with diversity. In some countries, you have legislation actually that requires that the workplace must be diverse. Okay, and I'm not talking race and gender. Diversity. When I talk about diversity, that's just the entry point. But it's once we have all the team members from different backgrounds, how do you actually allow them to be themselves, to share what they know, to share their culture, not to feel their culture is inferior to your culture, but that's how you show up. Hence the question, what kind of a work colleague are you? Are you a snob? Do you look down upon other people? Because if you do that, what's going to happen, you're going to sniff out this culture of sharing, because people will not be feeling comfortable. They don't know what to share. And it goes back to the point of psychology. Do we feel that we can be who we are, psychological self? So let's create a culture of sharing. Most organizations have values. We know they are always put on the wall. But the key thing with values is to actually make sure that those values are lived. We action them. We demonstrate and we celebrate when people live those values, when all of us live those values. Let me just give you an example. I work for an organization where the lowest, because we have these ranks in organizations, right? We have the people at the top and the people at the bottom, as it were. But these values united everybody. And whatever level you were, the expectation was that you leave these values, and they liberated. Because on the basis of the values, a value like diversity, for instance, that we welcome all ideas in this organization, people were able to use that value to say, I'm going to make a contribution because it is accepted. Everybody has said we are going to be diverse. So when I go out to recruit as an HR officer, I know that I can scour the market and get everybody here because somebody's going to call you out if you then base whatever decision on external factors, not the real factors that should be considered. Is this the most suitable qualified person for this position? Full stop. Nothing else. Because we have a value. So it applies across everything. How does our supplier database look like? Is it exclusive for that particular group of people, or is it diverse? So that kind of value enabled employees, even the most junior employee, to question decisions that the leaders would make. That all leaders here, I mean, at all levels of this organization. Because on the strength of the values that we share, a sharing culture, we can challenge each other, we can hold each other accountable. So values are critical if we are going to create a culture that is inspiring, a culture that is diverse. Fourthly, we've already heard from my colleagues, the other speakers, that structures have been demolished. The militaristic organizational cultures, or structures rather, have been demolished. We now are talking gig economy, networked economy. And that's what we need in order to have inspiring workplaces. You don't have to be going through a hierarchy to get stuff that you could get from another work colleague in order to deliver what you have to deliver to the customers. Because remember, it's not just about us. That actually reminds me that in our structures, it's not just about us, but it's about the people that we serve, the customers out there. How does this structure that we have, this structure of this organization that we have, enable that we can indeed deliver inspirational service or inspiring service? Because it's no use having an inspiring workplace and we go out of business. The whole thing, what we're trying to do here is to create an inspiration, have our workplaces inspiring so that we can inspire our customers, therefore retain them. So everything that we do, the end result is the people that we serve. You could be working for the state, the citizens that you serve. What kind of service are we giving them? Are we giving them a service where we're dragging ourselves to deliver this service? And it takes months and months and months. We are not known for speed, agility, because we have bureaucracy in the system. Again, bureaucracy is created by people. We can break bureaucracy. We can create inspiring workplaces wherever we are. It's a choice that individuals make. Of course, this whole thing is based on relationships. We know that relationships that we have with people in our supply value chain, how do we interact with them? Are we inspiring to them? So structures are important. It's the fourth pillar in what I think humane pillars, rather pillars of a humane or humane workspaces or humane work structures. That's what we need. We need to make sure that we create relationships that generate freedom for us to deliver to the people that we're supposed to deliver. Here's the quotation that I made earlier. I get paid well to do something that I enjoy, and I'm surrounded by clever, funny, like-minded people. And for 40 or 50 hours a week, every week, I feel isolated. We don't want workspaces where people spend the bulk of their time, but they feel, I don't have any relationship here, even though I'm surrounded by the smartest people on the planet. You've got to make sure that as a work colleague, you look out for your other work colleagues to create this inspiring workspace. They may be a distance away from you. Pick up that phone call. Make sure that we destroy isolation. It's important. Finally, the fifth pillar is spiritual connection. Spiritual connection, now I'm not talking about being religious mambo jumbo here. No, I'm talking about a sense of purpose. Because when we live our purpose, when we have a sense of purpose, we are going to be caring. Because it's no longer about us. It's fulfilling that purpose that we're driving. And when we do that, we'll be caring. We'll be doing work that we know is meaningful. And when it is not meaningful, and when we're not connecting with what we're doing, we're going to make sure that we let others know. We find our voice to say we shouldn't be doing this or we shouldn't be doing this way. Because why? We're the culture that is supportive of inspiration. Because you're not going to get inspired by something that is purposeless. A sense of purpose is key if we're going to create these exciting, inspiring workspaces. And finally, well-being under this. Because if you have a sense of purpose, you're going to make sure that you take care. What makes you fulfill that purpose is because you're also taking care of self. Men, we are very notorious. We take our big cars, our expensive cars for service. But the body, that is so critical, we never actually take time to say, how am I well? We postpone and postpone and postpone that visit, that critical visit to your GP, to check, just to once a year, to check how you are. So if we need to understand our sense of purpose, how that sense of purpose, we can fulfill it for the longest possible time by taking care of ourselves, taking care of those that are around us. A sense of purpose gives you determination to achieve what you need to achieve, and it gives you the freedom to really have your voice, because you're not going to be stopped by or be distracted from your sense of purpose by things that should not be distracting you. So do you have a sense of purpose that inspires you to perform the task that we are performing? So we know that workspaces have been reset. That's clear. And my view is that they will continue to reset as we develop. Because this period that we're in has given us a lot to think about, a lot to do, a lot to change, and to change with speed. We know that there are behaviors that we need to embrace. And that one of them that I'm suggesting is that you, as an individual, must really show up in the workplace and be that colleague who inspires others. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of my talk. I'm challenging us to be good work colleagues that inspire others to bring their best game every time when they come to the workplace. And if you are not that, stop and say, why am I not that? What can I do to change? Thank you for giving me an ear. Back to you, Amy.
Thank you, Dr. Gule. That was truly inspirational. I'm sure you'll all really agree. And you've really got me thinking about who am I and what kind of colleague am I, and really reflecting on that piece and who am I bringing to the workplace. I almost want to go and ask them right now. But they're all quite busy at the moment. Some are working behind the scenes on everything else that's going on here. But thank you for sharing with that. You definitely gave us a lot to think about. And one question I've got for you: you talked about this creating these cultures of belonging. Very difficult if people are feeling like they're an outsider, when you want everyone to feel like they belong. And this theme of creating psychologically safe workplaces, this has come up 4 times so far whilst we've been in EMEA. I can't talk for what was discussed in Asia, but I'm sure it was probably discussed there as well. It seems to be a really, really strong theme coming through from some of the lessons we've learned over the last year about psychological safety and belonging. Do you feel like that is more difficult to achieve whilst people are working so disparate and a lot of people are working from home, or do you think it's more achievable?
It is definitely challenging at the moment, because as Yemi pointed out, I mean, a lot of organizations, where a lot of us went into lockdowns thinking, oh, it's going to just be a couple of days. So not really psychologically prepared for what was going to come. And in cultures or in organizations where this was psychological safety, I mean, where people have been bashed, and Amy, the workplace, I mean, just look at what has happened to figures that we respected because we saw them in Hollywood and all that. And the stuff, particularly that women have experienced, the Me movement, Me Too movement. I mean, all that to me speaks to the fact that the workplace can be really devastating if we're not careful. Therefore, it's difficult to create that. But until people know I can actually have a voice here, I have the freedom to make my voice heard. Now, it's not a one-way street. Remember, leaders themselves, I as a leader, for instance, with my team now, which I meet once a month, because we can, or not once a month, once a week, we can come together physically, but of course, socially distanced and all that, masked up and so forth, because we want to make sure. But it's my responsibility to touch base with each one of those members as they do this. Sometimes not even to talk about work. Because if an organization did not have a culture of letting people be heard, it's going to be difficult in this environment of lockdowns, working away, virtual working, to simply do that. But we need the employees to know that it's a two-way street. They also have the boss or the supervisors or whoever must make sure that they let their employees know that they can pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah, and you've talked obviously about your 5 pillars of a humane workplace, and the key to all of this is, and I'm hearing this so much today, is about being humane, being a human, but allowing everyone to be a human, allowing them to be their true selves, allowing them to feel psychologically safe, allowing them to speak up, and creating this culture of belonging. And that can be a lot more difficult. We in the UK are back in a lockdown for the 3rd time, so we are all where we can, not everybody, but where possible, are back in our homes, and the only contact we're having is in such a way through a screen, and for some people that can be quite difficult to find ways to speak up. That might not be their preferred route. So I guess it's about finding different routes for different people, really understanding your people, and really listening to what they need to feel safe.
Yeah. And in my meetings, Amy, every meeting, and I think the team, at some point, people should. In my meeting, the first item on the agenda, of course, all our meetings very well. You are welcome to the meeting, but really is to check in. How are you feeling today? And sometimes you ask that question. It is a dangerous question to ask, I must say, because sometimes you may have to stop your meeting and deal with the colleague who is actually, by asking this question, how are you, may immediately be thinking about stuff that's outside the workplace. But that's fine. That's fine. Allow people the opportunity to deal with the emotions. We must all understand there are Amy, we all are fearful, right? The vaccine is still, and we in the southern tip of Africa, we know we will get it. We will, in fact, the whole developing world is likely to get this thing last. And then the people are starting to say, is that fair? That's another question. What I'm saying is that we're all fearful. You be a leader, you're a general employee, you are fearful. And leaders must accept, they must say, listen, I'm also fearful. I'm sitting here and I know colleagues that have passed on within my own family. So you are fearful. Be genuine, in other words. Don't fake it. When people know that you are not faking who you are living you are being genuine. People are so giving. I'm just amazed to see that employees actually, if the leader is just being human, they know that he's one of us, and they go all out to make sure that you win, the organization wins. They feel inspired, in other words, the stuff that you're talking about here. When you are human, you inspire others.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The best leaders I've ever worked for and continue to remember and have a lasting impact on me are the ones that were human, and the ones that were not so inspiring for me, the ones that put on their mask, right? Put on the I'm the boss. And they weren't human, so I therefore felt that I couldn't be human, or felt that anything that was going on in my life was not important because I'm at work now. And actually the line is blurred almost so much that we need to encourage that humanity in people. Dr. Jerry, thank you so much again. It's been a few years since our conference with you in Johannesburg, but it's so great to be with you in that southern tip of Africa today and have you sharing so much. So we really appreciate it. We will be following up some of the 5 pillars of a humane workplace and everything that you've talked about in a blog, and we will be sharing that to everyone after this as well. But for now, it's a goodbye for now, and we'll hope to see you soon. Thank you.